हरे कृष्णा। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। So, a very hearty welcome to all the participants who are coming again for joining the part 2 of this course. I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for joining and encouraging. So, as I mentioned last time, this course, Self-Evaluation Tools on the Path of Bhakti, this is the second part, and the first part it has 5 recordings. So those of you who are directly joining for the part 2 of the course might find it little difficult to understand, because it's a continuation of the first part of the course. So I would strongly recommend that you hear the part 1 of the course to get some idea of what we have been discussing till now. Even though if you start directly from part 2 also, most likely will be starting with the Anartha Nivritti stage, you might find it immediately relevant actually. So even if you have not heard first part, it is still okay, but I would strongly recommend that you hear the part 1 5 lectures also. That would be very useful. And there is a small change that we have done in the part 2 of this series. Some devotees expressed that 1.5 hours is becoming little too long. So we have made it to 1 hour this time. So we'll have 7 days continuously, part 2 will go on, but it will be just 1 hour discussion. So I hope and pray that you have a fruitful journey through the next 7 days starting from today. And I pray that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and the whole Guru Shishya Parampara bless you with the desired blessings so that you can progress nicely on the path of devotional service, following in the footsteps of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as he has taught in this course. So we will start the part 2 of this session. I will do a quick recap of what we have seen in the part 1 till now, and then we will start today's discussion. As I told you before, this course is based primarily on the book Shri Madhurya Kadambini by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This book has been written in the form of a self-evaluation tool book. Any practicing sadhaka, by reading this book, can get a reasonably good idea of where he stands right now in terms of his devotional progress and what he can expect, what are the stages that he can expect in future. So that's why I termed this course as Self-Evaluation Tools on the Path of Bhakti. So Madhurya Kadambini, Madhurya means sweet nectar and Kadambini means cloud bank. Just like the regular cloud bank showers rain, this cloud bank showers pure unalloyed nectar. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has named the name of the chapters as Amrita Vrishti, or shower of nectar. Pratama Amrita Vrishti, Dvitiya Amrita Vrishti, Tritiya Amrita Vrishti, and so on. That's how he has titled the chapters. Until now we have almost completed 2 showers. We are still left with 6 showers. The third shower is a longer shower and the rest of the showers are fairly small. So over the period of next 7 days, we will see how much we can complete. If some portion is left over, we will do part 3 of this course also. But definitely I guarantee that we will complete this book. It's not a very big book, but then it's a very deep book. So we will definitely complete the book. If not possible in part 2 of this series, we will definitely try to complete it in the third part. We'll extend it. So in part 1, we saw Srila Vishwanath Thakur establishes the super excellence of the path of bhakti over all the other paths like karma, jnana, yoga, etc. The book, the author started with the Mangalacharan, glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy as the Madhurya Kadambini, and he also glorified Srila Rupa Goswami for empowering even ordinary sadhakas to understand the concept of Bhakti Rasa through his writings, primarily in the form of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and also through other books like Ujjwal Nilamani and as such. And then in the next section, Srila Vishwanath Thakur established what is the highest understanding of absolute truth as established by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established the highest understanding of absolute truth that has ever been given by any Vaishnava Sampradaya. Till now, the highest understanding of absolute truth was Shadaishwarya Purna Bhagavan, one who possesses all the 6 opulences in full. But in this section, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, since he came, he established the highest understanding of absolute truth as one step higher. Akhila Rasamrita Murti, the personification of all devotional rasas, that is Krishna in Vrindavan. One who is perfectly capable of reciprocating with everyone in all rasas, that is Akhila Rasamrita Murti. And then we saw that how the Lord is independent and he can appear at any time, under any circumstances, but he chooses to appear whenever there is a decline in religion and an increase in irreligion. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So even though he appears when there is a dharmasya glani and adharmasya abhyuttanam, but still those circumstances do not force Krishna to appear, but Krishna chooses to appear. And then in the next verse he says, Sambhavami yuge yuge. Yuge yuge indicates, is it again the yuga or the time does not force Krishna to appear, but Krishna chooses to appear in every yuga. So in this way, only from an external point of view, it may seem like Krishna's appearance is decided by either time or circumstances or people or something like that, but it is only an external understanding. In reality, Krishna chooses to appear based on his own independent sweet will and nothing other than that. In the same way, his primary energy, Bhakti Shakti also appears independently. So how it actually appears? In this context we discussed how one receives the seed of devotion. So we discussed various different options. Does it appear by luck? Does it appear by luck caused due to piety? Or is it causeless luck? Or does bhakti appear by the independent will of Krishna? Or does bhakti appear by the independent will of the devotee who is sharing it? Or does bhakti manifest due to the independent will of the receiver who is trying to receive it? We explored all these options and came to the conclusion that actually one receives bhakti by the independent will of the devotee. And then we tried to understand what does the devotee distribute. Is he distributing bhakti? And if he is distributing bhakti, what does it mean to distribute bhakti? All these various things we tried to understand, in which we explored this understanding of Agyata Sukriti, which one receives through Mahat Kripa and Mahat Seva. So this was an elaborate discussion, I will not get into this. And then subsequently the next theme that we discussed was how bhakti is not caused by any other process like karma jnana yoga, rather it is bhakti which supports all the other processes. And such an exalted path of bhakti, how it is not even dependent on the purity of heart of the practitioner. As Krishna says, apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak. Even a sudurachari can take up to bhakti and eventually by that practice of bhakti can cleanse his heart. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati. And then progress further and attain the lotus feet of the Lord. That is possible. And it is a popular misunderstanding that bhakti is just a means of attaining the path of jnana. But bhakti is not a means of attaining jnana, but sometimes bhakti plays the role of jnana's assistant only to support it. Just like Vamanadev appeared as the younger brother of Indra, just to support Indra because of his affection for his devotee, and Indra was a devotee. So therefore one should not conclude that Indra is superior to Vamanadev because he is the elder brother. In the same way, one should not conclude that karma jnana or yoga is superior to bhakti because here bhakti has taken a secondary role. So bhakti takes a secondary role only to out of compassion towards these other paths, just to support karma jnana yoga. That is the only reason. Therefore, understanding such an exalted nature of bhakti, if a person rejects that bhakti, he can be nothing less than an animal. Kovaina seveta vina naretaram. This is where we ended the first shower of Madhurya Kadambini. Then we started the second shower, where in this shower we saw Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha and Bhajana Kriya, and primarily Anishtita Bhajana Kriya we discussed. So in the second shower, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti started by mentioning that how this work is not a refutation of Mayavad, as is the other book which was titled as Aishwarya Kadambini. It was a refutation of Mayavad. So Madhurya Kadambini might seem like a sequel to that first book, but he says no, this is not a sequel to that book, and this has nothing about Mayavad Khandan. And then he describes the two types of bhakti, Raga Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti. So Raga Bhakti means that which is inspired by a spontaneous deep thirst for the object of love. And this kind of bhakti is seen in the Vrajavasis. So this is called as Ragatmika Bhakti. And those devotees who get their inspiration to practice bhakti by seeing the practice of the Ragatmika Bhaktas of Vrindavan, they are called as Raganuga Bhaktas. And then we saw Vaidhi Bhakti means where that person may not have that spontaneous greed to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis, but still he is practicing all the limbs of bhakti because he is getting his inspiration from the instructions of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. This is called as Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And then we saw that how both this Vaidhi Sadhana and Raganuga Sadhana equally manifest two qualities which are Kleshagni and Shubhada, which are compared to two leaves which are sprouting from the creeper of devotion, the first two leaves. So then we saw Klesha means suffering, and suffering manifests in the form of Prarabdha Karma and Aprarabdha Karma. But destruction of suffering is not complete if one destroys only Prarabdha Karma and Aprarabdha Karma. One should also destroy the cause of suffering, which is, we saw, the sinful impressions which inspire sinful desires, and those sinful desires leading to sinful activities. So this we saw. And we had an elaborate discussion based on how these sense inputs in the form of form perceived by eyes, taste perceived by tongue, smell perceived by nose, touch sensation perceived by the skin, and sound perceived by the ears, all of that, how they actually transform into emotions, material emotions, because these four antakaranas, chitta, buddhi, mana and ahankar, work in conjunction with the past vasanas, and how it manifests into material emotions, and those material emotions bind us to this material world. We discussed this in elaboration and we also discussed the mousetrap experiment performed by Pavlov. So in this way we understood that how bhakti destroys prarabdha karma, aprarabdha karma, then the sinful vasanas within the heart and the sinful desires which manifest due to those vasanas, all of that is destroyed by bhakti. We discussed this. And then we discussed Shubhada, the bestowal of auspiciousness, and how the Shubha or auspiciousness is divided into four parts. Jagat Prinanam Sarva Jagata Manurakta Sadgunadi Pradatvam and Sukha Pradatvam. How practice of bhakti generates a natural compassion for all living entities in the heart of the practitioner, and how the practice of bhakti makes that personality very attractive to all living entities, how he develops all the good qualities and he develops happiness which is commensurate with his level of development in bhakti. Initially it is material, then it is happiness on the level of liberation, then it is happiness experienced by a pure devotee in relationship with Krishna at the stage of prema, Sandrananda Visheshatma, like that. And then we saw that how the first stage of development of bhakti is Shraddha, and that Shraddha is generated by accumulation of Agyat Sukruti that we saw. And the second stage, as soon as one gets Shraddha in the process, the first thought that comes to him is, I need a guru and I need fellow Vaishnavas who can inspire me in my path of devotional service. So he seeks for Sadhu Sangha. And this Sadhu Sangha we saw can be a result of Swabhaviki Shraddha or Balotpadita Shraddha. Shraddha we saw of two types. Swabhaviki Shraddha is that which naturally develops in a person without anyone explicitly preaching to that person. And Balotpadita Shraddha is a faith which develops in a person due to a favorable person preaching to them about the nature of Krishna consciousness. Whichever way the Shraddha develops, the immediate symptom, almost immediate symptom of that Shraddha is that the person feels, I need guidance in my spiritual life. I need the guidance of senior Vaishnavas, Guru, to progress in spiritual life. And then he seeks Sadhu Sangha, and then in that Sadhu Sangha, he develops the determination and taste for performing devotional activities which is called as Bhajana Kriya. And this Bhajana Kriya in the initial stages is very unsteady. And that stage of Bhajana Kriya is called as Anishtita Bhajana Kriya or unsteady devotional service. And this Anishtita Bhajana Kriya is of 6 stages or 6 types or stages. And we discussed this, and we also saw that how there could be a overlap of 2 or 3 stages in the practice of a practitioner. These 6 stages are Utsahamayi, Ghanatarala, Vyuda Vikalpa, Vishaya Sangara, Niyamakshama and Tarangarangini. So we had an elaborate discussion on these 6 stages the last time we discussed. I will do a quick recap of it. The Utsahamayi stage is the stage of false confidence, where the person thinks that, actually he has heard little bit of Krishna conscious philosophy, he has seen the lifestyle of devotees for a while, he is attracted, he likes the philosophy little bit, and he knows little bit of it, and he understands also that certain things are unfavorable, and he thinks that he has learned it all, He has almost become a pure devotee. And he thinks, why only 16? I will chant more than that. Throughout the day I will be Krishna conscious. And very soon I will go back home, back to Godhead. Like that he feels. So easy. What can be a more easy path than practicing this bhakti? Like that he gets a very strong sense of false confidence. And then he rushes with that false confidence. The very next day he might start attending Mangalarti, or Mangalarti may be 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and he may reach the temple at 3 o'clock only and chant 16 rounds before the Mangalarti only. This kind of newfound false confidence is called as Utsahamayi stage. And then we saw very soon the bubble bursts, the enthusiasm bubble bursts because it is not real, it is false. And then reality dawns in the form of the second stage, Ghana Tarala. After chanting 32 rounds on the very second day or third day, the next day he finds no enthusiasm to chant even one round. And he feels, I have already made up for it, no problem. So in this way, sometimes he feels great enthusiasm, and at other times there is literally a trickle of enthusiasm. So this is actually reality. Ghana Tarala. Even though from 32 he has come to 0, one may think that, he has suddenly in one day degraded, or he has regressed in his practice of devotional service. But this is not considered as regression. This is actually progression only, because this is reality. That confidence was false. This is reality. The reality is that my faith is extremely weak and tender, and it needs sufficient nourishment from Vaishnava association. So what I thought was my actual level of progress is actually not. That is why the second stage of Ghana Tarala is a progress, reality. He has come in touch with reality now. His feet is starting to get grounded now. He was flying in the air, and now he has come down with a thud, with a bang. Reality has dawned. Then he realizes, for how long I will continue this way? Ghana Tarala, 32, 0, 16, 2. This cannot continue this way. How? I need to be practicing more steady devotional service. Why is my devotional service unsteady? He starts exploring. And while he starts exploring, he realizes, because of his devotional development, he is only able to see externally, for external factors, to rectify his devotional service. So he thinks, maybe my office is too far. Maybe I am in the wrong ashram. Maybe I am in the wrong job. So in this way, or maybe I am in the wrong city. Maybe from a particular city he went on a deputation to a different city, and there he found the devotees association very powerful. And he thinks, I should be there, and preferably maybe even in the brahmachari ashram. Like that, he keeps on evaluating the available opportunities and sees what kind of external change if I make, I can make my practice of devotional service steady. So this kind of extensive deliberation or speculation in trying to steady his practice of devotional service is called as Vyuda Vikalpa, where he is looking externally. What kind of external environment change can make my practice of bhakti steady? So this third stage is a progress, because at least he has identified that unsteady devotional service is not sustainable. I would like to study my devotional service. So eventually he does make some external arrangement, changes, which does improve his practice of devotional service a little bit. But then he realizes, when he comes to the fourth stage, that actually what I thought that the external situations are the cause, they are not the actual cause of my unsteady devotional service, or they are not the complete cause. Actually, the real cause is that my senses and mind are uncontrolled. That is why my practice of devotional service is unsteady. So what can I do to control my unsteady mind and senses? So then starts this protracted struggle with his mind and senses, where he constantly tries to pull them back, engage them in Krishna consciousness, pull them back, engage them in Krishna consciousness, pull them back, engage them in Krishna consciousness. So in this fourth stage, he is constantly thinking of, are my senses engaged in Krishna conscious activities? Is my mind engaged in some Krishna conscious activity? Like that, he is constantly absorbed in this thought. And this could be a very long stage actually. So this is called as Vishaya Sangara, which is the fourth stage of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya. After some time, due to diligent practice, he may actually gain fairly good control over his mind and senses also. Then starts the next stage, which is called as Niyama Akshama. So at this stage, rather than thinking about controlling the mind and senses, which have become little bit pacified, he starts thinking about enhancing his practice. Why only 16? I have been chanting for so many years. I think it's high time I should increase the number of rounds. Maybe 20. And for how long I will chant a few rounds while traveling? Maybe I could wake up little early so that those 4 to 8 rounds that I chant while traveling, I could chant at home in front of the deities. So in this way, he starts to make positive vows. So his mind is now absorbed on positive vows. He is not just meditating on controlling his senses. So in this way, he reaches this Niyamakshama stage, and even in this endeavor, he sometimes meets with success, sometimes with failure. This is called as Niyamakshama. And then comes the last stage of Tarangarangini, where if he is able to perfectly control the senses and make positive vows and progress, it immediately starts attracting puja, labh, pratishtha, or name, fame, glorification, adoration, and then he gets carried away by that for a while. So that stage is called as Tarangarangini, and that becomes an obstacle to his progress. And then in that stage, if he has good association, then he can overcome that. So therefore we saw that for overcoming all these 6 stages of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, the most potent solution is association of devotees. We started discussing this theme, but somehow we did not have time to complete. So we will complete it today. So to start this, we saw a very beautiful verse spoken by Hiranyakashipu to Prahlad Maharaj. Yasya yat sangati pumso manivat syat satadgunah swakula ridyai tato dhiman swayutani eva samshrayet. Hiranyakashipu is telling Shri Prahlad Maharaj, Manivat, just like a transparent crystal takes an appropriate color. If someone goes in front of it with a particular colored t-shirt or dress, it takes that color. Similarly, the association of a person determines what qualities he develops. So you, Prahlad Maharaj, you have developed such soft, very, you know, you should have qualities like the asuras like us, very brave and very boisterous and controlling. And but whose association did you take? You took this association of this Narada Muni. That is why you are like this. Now at least you understand that it is important that you associate with our asuras so that you will develop qualities similar to us. Why did you make this mistake? Like that. So he indicates to, so he identified the principle, the potency of association, but he is using it in a way that it makes sense to him, to his asura brain. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in his book Manas Siksha, he says, anyway, we saw that how in the first 3 stages of Utsahamayi, Ghanatarala and Vyuda Vikalpa, actually Vaishnava association really helps. Because mature, compassionate association of Vaishnavas, they can identify, oh, Utsahamayi, I see 3 o'clock he is sitting in front of the temple gate. Okay, I know this will not continue for long. This is just this Utsahamayi stage, I know. And then actually after 2 days, he is not even coming to the temple. So then he understands, okay, Ghanatarala is going on. He will come back at some time. So the mature Vaishnava may call him and ask him how you are doing and all that. And then when he expresses his disappointment at not being able to practice that enthusiastically, he says, don't worry, this happens. No problem. Don't, if not 16, why you are doing 0? Start with 2. Then slowly increase to 4. So in this way, slowly the Vaishnava association helps that person come out of the Ghanatarala stage also. And then when he comes to the stage of Vyuda Vikalpa, where he is extensively deliberating on how I should settle down in Krishna consciousness, a mature association helps there also. You know, the counselor or the mentor or the guide may guide the person to choose appropriate job, a kind of job which in the long run he feels might be suitable for him. He might even suggest or help that person identify himself, you know, how much he could travel to properly practice his chanting and hearing and all that. So even in the stage of Vyuda Vikalpa, the association of mature Vaishnavas is extremely vital. And then at the stage of Vishaya Sangara, when the person is struggling with the senses, at that stage also, association of Vaishnavas is extremely vital. So yesterday we saw this prayer in Manas Siksha by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Asat cheshta kashta prada vikata pashali biriha prakamam kamadi prakata patipati vyatikaraihi gale badva hanyeham iti bakavid vartmapagane kurutvam futkaran avatisayata tvam manayita. So he says, this path of devotion is a sparkling path. It's a very clear path. Dhavan nimilyava netre naskalenna patediha. Even if one runs with his eyes closed, one will not slip or fall down. But there are some highway robbers who are standing on the path. Prakamam kamadi, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. The 6 enemies are standing there with ropes to bind our neck. What are these ropes? Asat cheshta, wicked deeds which are inspired by these 6 enemies. And then, so then they will bind our neck and they can pull us away from that road. Or they may stop us from progressing on that road. So what is the solution for this? He says, when the highway robbers are there, you better have the number of the police. So there are some policemen also, but you have to call them, only then they will come. Who are the policemen on this path of bhakti? He says, Bakabid Vartmapagane. Bakabid Vartmapagane means the Vaishnavas who are the protectors of the path of devotion, path of Krishna. Baka is Bakasur and Bakabid is Krishna who kills Bakasur. Bakabid Vartma is the path leading to Krishna's lotus feet, and Bakabid Vartmapa are the protectors of that path, the Vaishnavas. And yesterday we saw the word Baka is used, Bakasur, because Bakasur is the personification of duplicitous hypocrisy. So when we are so he says that Kurutvam Futkaran, cry out loudly and piteously, calling out to the Vaishnavas, Hanyeham, Hanyeham iti. I am dead, please protect me. They are choking my neck like that. So as soon as you call them, they come, Avati Sayat Sayatatvam Manayita. They will come back and protect you. So the point is, when we are in the association of devotees, our lower modes do not pull us. You will not sit in the temple in the association of all the devotees and watch a cricket match on your smartphone. Even though that temptation may be strong, but it will be completely subdued in the association of sincere devotees. But if we are alone, do we have the willpower to say no? If we are alone, do we have the willpower to say no to various temptations? There are many devotees who take up to devotional service, especially in this age of, as His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj says, weapons of mass distraction. There are so many weapons of mass distraction. Primarily the internet, smartphones, it's all there within our pocket. And it's so tempting actually. So many things to tempt us away from devotional service. But if we are in the association of devotees, if we can, then we can protect ourselves. But if we are alone, then it's very difficult. So many devotees may be struggling with various addictions, temptations. It may start with temptations. It may start with liking. It could be on the level of liking. It could be on the level of temptation. It could be on the level of addiction. Helplessly addicted to internet. Some struggle with internet pornography. Some struggle with watching YouTube addictions, WhatsApp addictions. And to the extent that they have, actually modern psychologists have, psychologists and psychiatrists, they have examined people post smartphone era. They have examined many patients, and they have seen that they show symptoms. If their smartphone is taken away from them, they show symptoms which are very similar to the withdrawal symptoms seen in drug addicts. So severe drug addicts, like say cocaine addict or whatever, you take the drug away from them and their blood pressure shoots, they start sweating, they start panicking, they start hyperventilating. So in this way they show very severe extreme symptoms which are called as withdrawal effect. And very similar withdrawal effect have been seen in many people who are addicted to using their cell phones. Therefore, one of the very popular things today is digital detox. So they want to detoxify them of not chemicals but digital gadgets, digital detox. That's when you try to do that digital detox, we actually realize how much we are attached to these things. But our only solace, our only hope is the association of devotees. Because in the association of devotees, we don't want to disappoint them. We don't want to cut a sorry figure. So therefore, slowly our good self comes out in the association of devotees. So therefore, as far as possible, we should stay in the association of devotees. Okay, this might be possible for those who are staying in the temple, like those who are brahmacharis. Even there, one has to take additional effort to stay in the association. But in the for those who are staying at their homes, then they have to create a favorable atmosphere at home, and they should have a mentor to whom they can share, maybe like their sadhana, how it's going, how they are coping with the urges which come in the form of internet, YouTube and WhatsApp and smartphones and all these things. So they should have some mentor to whom they can constantly reveal, take guidance. So when that accountability is created, then it to a large extent it puts some full stop, not full stop, at least it acts as a barrier for us to cross the limits. Because self-accountability is the weakest accountability. So if we have accountability towards a senior devotee to whom we report, Prabhuji, today I could not follow it properly, whatever. So then next time you would think that, oh, I don't want to disappoint this devotee. So that will give a very positive impetus for us to stay away from temptations. So therefore, especially at this fourth stage of Vishaya Sangara, the association of devotees can do wonders. This is very important to overcome this struggle. So then, yesterday we saw that how in Bhagavad Gita also Arjuna says, Ata kena prayuktoyam papam charati purushah anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitah. He says, what is impelling a person to act in a way, in sinful activities, to engage in sinful activities? Krishna says, Kamayesha Krodayesha Rajoguna Samudbhavan Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyena Miha Vairinam. It is lust only, Arjuna. And where does this lust reside? Indriyani Manobuddhir Asyadhishtana Muchyate. Lust resides in senses, mind and intelligence. But of the three, the easiest way of addressing this lust is by addressing the senses. Senses means favorable engagement for the senses. Otherwise, we always think that, oh, I am doing mechanical chanting, I am doing mechanical hearing. Prabhuji, my devotional service is very mechanical. But actually, mechanical devotional service is good in one sense. Why? Because mechanical devotional service is the means to attain absorbed spontaneous devotional service. What is mechanical devotional service? Mechanical devotional service means where the senses are engaged in Krishna conscious activities but the mind is elsewhere. Now the question is, why is the mind elsewhere? Why is the mind thinking of different things? Because during the day, even though we may have engaged in Krishna conscious activities for 20 hours a day, let's say 6 hours we sleep and the rest of the day is you have about 18 hours. In 18 hours, let's say we engage in Krishna conscious activities for 16 hours. Which is pretty good. 2 hours for my entertainment. 2 hours I will check my WhatsApp messages, I will see some YouTube videos, non-Krishna conscious of course. But 16 hours I have engaged in Krishna conscious activities. But the point is, so we may expect that naturally my mind should sit on Krishna's lotus feet. But it won't. Why? Because that 16 hours activities, Krishna conscious activities, we have not yet developed an attachment. The 2 hours of non-Krishna conscious gossiping and doing all such other non-Krishna conscious things, we have a very strong taste for it. Like when you are cooking a food and if you want to flavor it, if you put one small pinch of hing or asafoetida, it has a very strong smell. Even though you have put 2 kilograms of rice and maybe 1 kilogram of moong dal and everything, but you put 1 spoon of hing in that, the whole khichdi will smell like hing only, even though it has so many other ingredients. But how much hing you have put? Only 1 spoon, but 1 spoon hing is a lot. Similarly, even though we might have engaged in Krishna conscious activities for 16 hours, but 2 hours of non-Krishna conscious engagement for which we have a strong taste and addiction will control our mind completely for the rest of the day. So then we keep asking, why is my devotional service mechanical? मन नहीं लग रहा है. मन क्यों लगेगा? क्योंकि मन, the mind is always thinking about those 2 hours of activities for which we have a lot of taste. Just 2 hours I watched cricket match, 16 hours I engaged in Krishna conscious activities. What will happen? The rest of the day we will think about those 2 hours, irrespective of whether India won the match or lost the match. If India has won the match, then we will reminisce those moments. And if India has lost the match, then we will keep regretting. And that way our japa will go on, our hearing will go on, our deity worship will go on, and our mind will go and sit there. So the real challenge is not engaging the mind, but the real challenge is engaging the senses first in the Krishna conscious activities. If we can engage, if we can give 24 hours a day engagement, apart from the 6 hours of sleep, if 18 out of 18 hours, if we don't engage in any nonsense activities, then the mind will keep focusing on Krishna conscious activities only. So this is called as, because the nature of the mind is, it has a nature of always accessing fresh memories. If you have freshly watched the cricket match, it will always stay in the memory. But, so therefore the fresh memories should always be Krishna conscious memories. So the mind will go and sit there. So therefore Krishna consciousness is surface impression management. All the surface impressions should be Krishna conscious impressions. Then your mind will go and dwell there only. But if at the surface you allow some material impressions to creep in every now and then the mind will go and sit there only. So therefore, I think in the initial stages of devotional service, we need not be so much bothered about mechanical devotional service. It is better to perform mechanical devotional service than spontaneous sense gratification. Because sense gratification comes spontaneous to us. So, and the only means of overcoming that addiction for sense gratification is mechanical devotional service. Means ensure that your senses are always engaged in Krishna conscious activities. Then mind will slowly follow, because mind will have no other choice. The nature of mind is to get adjusted to new reality. I'll give you an example. when I was staying in my boarding school, it used to happen that the school was in the shore of a river, so there used to be a lot of fisheries were very popular there. And in our school, practically most, because it was a military school, most students who used to join, they were non-vegetarians only, or they eventually would become non-vegetarian. But somehow, maybe because of my upbringing, I could never become a non-vegetarian despite staying in that school for so many years. But the mess used to constantly smell like fish, whether your plate or your glass, or from half a kilometer before reaching the mess only, it will start stinking of, you will get that fishy smell. So I remember after our summer vacation or winter vacation, when we had spent 1 or 2 months at home, at our home we hardly eat even onion garlic. It's proper Sri Vaishnav cooking that my mother does. So it is very sattvic. And then after 2 months, when at the first day I go to school, the impact is very, very strong actually. And the first day, literally, I can't go to the mess. I can't eat. It's so nauseating because everything smells like fish. And then first day I don't eat, and I can manage because I have just come from home and my mother has sent with me some supply of some food items from home. So I manage with that. 1 day goes, 1.5 days goes, maximum 2 days. Then how much will your youthful appetite tolerate? On the second or third day, you don't have any further tolerance. So you feel so hungry, you go and eat, and over a period of time you forget. And I remember on our Wednesday afternoons and on Friday nights, we used to have ceremonial lunch and ceremonial dinner. When something special, instead of white rice, you will have a pulao, and instead of ordinary sabji, you will have some special sabji, then some cutlets and some sweets and things like that. In the same fishy smelling plate and glass, everything, nothing has changed. But within 2 days, you are eagerly waiting for the Wednesday afternoons and Friday nights. That's how easy it is for the mind to get used to new reality. Even though on the just 2 days back, I was just regretting and nauseating, and it was such a terrible feeling. But when the mind gets used to the new reality, it will start searching for happiness within that new reality. So therefore, if we can cut down on those 2 hours of sense gratification and give constant Krishna conscious engagement for our senses, all 18 hours, then within that 18 hours, our mind will search for happiness. Kapiladev mentions in the 3rd canto, Narakastopi deham vai puman natyaktum ichchati. He says a very interesting fact. Even though it is so difficult to live in Naraka or hell, different types of Narakas, where someone is roasted in hot oil, someone is made to run on, steaming hot iron, and different things. You might have read it towards the end of 5th canto. But even in that Naraka where it is excruciatingly painful, but the person does not want to give up his body. He does not want to die. Why? Because even within that Naraka, there will be some pockets of time when he will feel some little bit of relief from that distress, which he would start relishing. Like even in prison house, sometimes they try to sneak in some cigarettes and some liquor, some drugs, like that. So in this way, even in prison house, they are actually eagerly looking forward. Or if monthly once their family members could come and see, they would eagerly look forward to that one day. Even though prison house is miserable, but even within prison house, the mind gets adjusted and starts looking for happiness in that realm. This is the nature of mind, and this nature of mind is the biggest benediction for the devotees. So that, why? Because we need not worry if 18 out of 18 hours if I engage in Krishna conscious activity, where will my entertainment come from? We need not worry. If we engage all 18 hours in Krishna conscious activities, within a few days or weeks, our mind will get used to the new reality and it will start searching for happiness within that. Let's say if we engage in DT worship, Shravanam, Kirtanam, morning program and all that, even within that, mind will go and sit on one Krishna conscious activity which we like the most. It could be Kirtan, it could be sitting and honoring prasadam with devotees, like that. So we need not worry that we will be depriving the mind of entertainment value. It will not happen. Just that we should have conviction that let me give good quality entertainment for my mind. For that, the mind has to be trained a little bit. Some determination should be there in the beginning, and this is most easily possible if we are in the association of like-minded Vaishnavas, because we see that everyone is struggling and everyone is trying to do it. So it gives us a lot of inspiration to do it ourselves. So therefore, at the stage of Vishaya Sangara also, it is much more easy. We can cross over this stage if we have good devotees association. And then what about Tarangarangini? And the same is true with Niyamakshama also. And the last stage, Tarangarangini, is how do we protect ourselves when we are getting swayed by glorification, fame, prestige, facilities that come our way, all because of proper practice of bhakti only. You have been doing something right, therefore you have attracted the attention and adoration of other Vaishnavas. So how are we going to handle this? So he says, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in his book Manas Siksha, he says, Pratishta Shadrishta Shwapacha Ramani me hridinyatet Katam sadhu prema sprishati shuchir etan nanumana Sada tvam sevasva prabudayita samantamatulam Yata tam nishkasya tvaritam ihatam veshayati saha. He says, as long as this pratistasha drishta shwapacha ramani me hridinatet, as long as this dog-eating, unchaste woman of desire for prestige is dancing within my heart, how can the chaste and pure lady of sadhu prema, as we saw yesterday or the last time, sadhu prema means the love that a sadhu has for Krishna, or it could mean the love that a sadhu has for me, or it could mean the love that I can develop towards a sadhu. So we will not have access to any of these three as long as our heart is filled with the desire for some name, fame, glorification, adoration. We cannot access the love for Krishna that the sadhu has in his heart. We cannot access that love the sadhu has towards us also. If we approach him in the mood of seeking prestige, adoration, then we cannot access the real mercy that the sadhu has to give to us. And naturally, we cannot develop any love and affection for the sadhu if our heart is consumed with the desire for name, fame, prestige, adoration, etc. What is the solution for this? Sadatvam sevasva Prabhu Dayita Samanta Matulam. Always serve exalted devotees. So when you serve exalted devotees in a menial way, then naturally it keeps us grounded and the desire for fame does not, show its dirty hoods, dangerous hoods. So, however famous we may become, every now and then we should actually, to protect ourselves, we should actually take shelter of serving exalted devotees. This is very, very important. So again, we have run out of time, as we decided that we would have just 1 hour. So tomorrow when I start, we will not have a recap tomorrow. We have already done sufficient recap. Directly I will start from this Tarangarangini where we left off, and we will have some fruitful discussion on this theme of how Tarangarangini can be actually overcome by the association of devotees. So I am sorry, most of what we discussed today was a repetition, but because a few days have passed, and as Krishna says, Sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa, with time our memory also fades. We may not necessarily remember what we have read, what we have heard. So for those of you who have tremendous memory, I apologize for again taking the time to, it was probably, but don't see it as a waste of time. It is connected to our devotional development. But nevertheless, I beg forgiveness. Tomorrow, without any kind of recap, we will immediately start from where we left off and then take this discussion further. So thank you very much for your patient listening. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Shri Madhurya Kadambini ki jai. Hare Krishna.